Now, before we get using compressor, I want to make sure that we understand the different terms that compressor uses to name different things on the interface. Let me go to this screen here and let me explain. What I have here is what compressor refers to as a batch. And let me open up the compressor interface. And in this case, the tab that you get to see here in the batch window, it's a batch. As you can see here, I have two batches open. One's called untitled, terrible name, and the other one is called untitled 2, which is even worse. That's because I have not named my batches. But nevertheless, a batch is made out of jobs. As you can see in this diagram, I have 3 jobs. One that has a little bit more information. And the best way to define a job is based on a source movie. So when you have a source movie, you have a job. Now, as I mentioned before, a batch could contain multiple jobs. For example, you can compress the risotto movie that I was compressing over here. That would be one job. And you had another movie, let's say a panna cotta movie or another recipe, that would be a different job. Now, let's move on and get into the details of a job. A job, apart from having a source, can have settings, destinations, and file names. Let me go back to compressor, or just move the window a little bit. And actually, I'm putting these boxes in the same order that they appear in the compressor interface. So the setting is very much the preset that you chose for compressing that particular movie. So in this particular case, I've got 2. One for the iPod version and the other one for the web version. Now, when those movies get compressed, they get to be saved in what it's called a destination. In this case, the destination is the same folder as the source movie. That's what the word source means. So the final output, let me just jump to the Finder. The final output for this particular movies happens to be on the root level of my hard drive. The reason why they appear in the root level of the hard drive is because the source is not a movie as such, it's rather a sequence from Final Cut Pro. So when that happens, the source, it's not the same folder as the Final Cut Pro sequence, it happens to be the root level of your hard drive. The other thing that I have in here, it's the file name. And that's the file name of the output. You can see here, compressor automatically entered a file name for me. I didn't have to do anything. Although at any point in time, I can just click on the name and replace that with the name of the final output. If I go back to the Finder window, this name that we see here, let me see if we can see it in a little bit of a longer window. This whole big long name is exactly the one that shows up over here. Let me just scroll up to the right so you can see the name. That whole big thing, it's this particular one that is selected. Now, as a group, a setting, a destination, and a file name, it's what compressor refers to as a target. So in this particular case, I have a job that contains 2 targets, one for the iPod and another one for the web. And just to complicate the hierarchy a little bit more, a job could have a couple of other things, which are additional information or metadata, and something that compressor refers to as job actions. Now, in this case, these two, I put them in italics because they're optional. You don't have to have them. Having said that, this is not optional. As soon as you have a movie to be compressed, you have a job. Once you apply any setting, you automatically create a target. So a job must contain a target always. Having said that, a job can contain multiple targets. As I mentioned before, the iPod version and the web version, those are the 2 different targets that I use for this particular source or for this particular job. So once we go through the different elements in compressor, we're going to be referring to these different terms as defined over here. And by the way, these are pretty much the official names. So when you go and look for them in the compressor documentation, this is how you're going to find them. You're going to find them as targets, jobs, batches, destinations, settings, And maybe the only one that I came up with is file name, which is pretty standard.